Evolution Cannon in a nutshell. Cannon will be the next evolution coming to Clash Royale. You can find it, I think, in the shop mid-season as an offer. I'm not sure, I didn't get like exact info, but use code Abdod if you're buying it. It's a 2-cycle evolution and has the same stats of a normal cannon except of these 2 lines down here. Oh, by the way, to the 2.6 players celebrating in the back, I have a question for you.
Did you ever find your dad?
The gimmick becomes apparent the moment you try to deploy it, as it will show a bunch of targets on the map. The location of these targets seem to not change if you move your cannon to the left or the right. They do, however, change positions if you move the cannon up or down, so it's just based on the y-axis position of your cannon. What these targets do is basically they send out an explosive cannonball on each one of them, dealing damage to everything caught in the explosion. The damage is also like the musketeer sniper shot, as in it's slightly less than arrows, meaning it can take out a firecracker on its own but not a bomber. But since it's just one shot and is more splash focused, it's closer to resemblance of a small spell like a stronger log. And what makes this even more useful is the fact that it does hit air troops, so it could serve as another anti-air card in some situations. The interactions it creates are actually quite nice, like for example, a fireball and an Evo Cannon can take out an archer queen, when originally fireball and log are not enough, so that could be helpful for 2.6 players. Using it with arrows can be a bit expensive considering it deals around the same damage as a fireball, but some cycle decks tend to struggle with taking out things like flying machine, and besides that, you still get to keep your cannon, so it's not entirely a bad trade at all. Again, making the same point with the Evo Musketeer, just think of it as a small spell and learn the key interactions and the important combos. And like every spell, timings are important for this card, as it's easy to miss troops with the shots. Pay close attention to the speed of the bombs. As you can see here, when slowed down, it appears that there is some time between the shots. The fact they don't all explode at the same time does increase the skill necessary to use this card, as you have to learn 3 different timings. But overall, the difference between them isn't that massive. You mostly just have to know that the bombs start from the middle and work their way to the sides. This evolution shines on defense, and a big part of the reason why it does is because the bombs have knockback on them. For example, a normal cannon sometimes gets placed like this against Royal Hogs to avoid giving earthquake value to them, which results in one piggy going to the tower. Good players often push that pig into the cannon by playing a 1 elixir card on its path, making the cannon closer than the crown tower. With the right timing, the bomb's pushback is capable of damaging the Royal Hogs and pushing them all closer to the cannon, so none of them would go on tower, saving you a single elixir. Another important example is this cannon placement against the balloon, which is very popular and is on its own enough to counter the balloon, making sure you get no hits except for the death bomb. The pushback on the Evo Cannon allows you to pull the balloon much deeper into the middle, and sure, the timing is a bit tight, but when you do it, you should be able to stop the balloon flawlessly, avoiding even the death damage from it. This pushback applies to a wide variety of troops, and when utilized correctly can be game-changing in some scenarios. Besides that, the bombs are capable of killing a bridge princess without forcing you to play your cannon on a dump tile like this. So basically, you won't really be forced to play your cannon on the river, which, believe it or not, is something I see a lot in top ladder gameplay. Cannon is often used to defend siege buildings, and the bombs will clip into them, making your job a lot easier with this guaranteed damage. Now, it might seem like if they place their mortar directly on the river, it would avoid the bombs, and it actually does, but if you move your cannon 1 tile below, you would basically undo this whole thing and get the bombs back on their mortar. Basically, no matter where they play their mortar, there will always be a tile that will get a bomb on it while making sure your cannon is in range to attack it. A small thing I want to point out, it seems like if your cannon is a bit lower, that 2 bombs would connect on the X-bow since it has a big hitbox. While it's true that the building would be in range of both, the game only counts 1 hit. I don't know, could be a glitch or something. Cannon can also be used as a get out of jail card if your arrows were out of cycle, as if they played an Evo Firecracker, it would cover up the entire bridge for you. It doesn't work on Evo Bomber since the damage isn't high enough, but I would take 1 out of 2 working. I think it's fair. It's great against Graveyard as well, because the bombs will clear some skeletons and assist with the troops tanking on the bridge, while the cannon will slowly eliminate skeletons with its regular attack. A cannon in the back can also counter a front goblin barrel, but I don't think it's worth playing your cannon in a bad spot for it unless you really had to. too. Goblin Drill is another example of things that work but isn't worth it because you don't want your cannon played this deep. It just feels like it only works on troops approaching the tower from the front, and the graveyard is the only exception. Like, look at how good it is against lava pops. Everything I mentioned earlier is cool and all, but this thing is best used against split lane decks. This is probably one of the few evolutions that does better against cycle decks than beatdown decks due to their spammy nature. The more troops they have on the map, the more of your explosions would get value instead of being wasted on nothing. Words cannot describe how cracked it is against Royal Recruits and 3 Musketeers. It's honestly depressing that a 3 Elixir guard can get this much value. And it's like a spell, so they can't do anything about it unless they have a monk, and he would only cancel it without reflecting it. Offensively, it's kind of fine, I guess. I mean, it could take out Swarm for your Hog Rider, but you'd really be better off using Earthquake for tower damage. And it can help damage buildings used to kite your win condition, but again, Earthquake does more damage and gets you tower damage. The only time I can see this being better than Earthquake is if both players are pushing at the same time. Then your Evo Cannon would both defend their hog and also damage their Tesla, kinda like a 2 birds 1 stone situation. The pushback from it does reset Inferno Dragon, but it's not like Royal Hogs or Hog Rider decks really struggle against that card. I've seen some Electro Giant decks run Cannon every now and then, so maybe there is small potential here. However, it's nowhere near game changing, if you get what I mean. Besides that, I don't really find any reason to use offensive Cannon. It kind of like doesn't even reset a Fisherman. The final offensive application is playing a cannon in the pocket, as it would get bombs on the enemy crown tower and enemy king tower at the same time. What's interesting is that there isn't any crown tower damage reduction, so you'll get full damage on them. For reference, the cannon bomb does more damage to towers than lightning spell, so do with this info what you must. Oh yeah, before I forget, the music in the background is the sudden death theme for this arena. I guess I could have revealed it yesterday, but I wanted to keep a unique music track for this video. For the first time in forever, I feel like both evolutions are low-key balanced. I would say Cannon needs a slight nerf and Musketeer needs a slight buff, but overall balancing seems solid, my dudes.